Discovered, the incredible hidden talent of a single dad janitor saved a life in just 12 seconds. Mike pressed the mop against the worn tiles of the science lab, forgetting the sweat beading on his brow for just a moment. Here he was, again a janitor, a dad, just scraping by with enough pride to fill a broken pocket. He glanced at the clock on the wall, wishing for the school day to end, his mind racing with visions of his daughter, Lily, scrambling home with new books and endless ambition. But today was different. A shout echoed down the corridor, slicing through the mundane rhythm of his cleaning routine. Adrenaline shot through him as he rushed toward the science lab, the scene inside gripped him by the throat. A student lay unconscious, classmates frozen in panic, their eyes wide with uncertainty, helpless. Mike's heart thumped. Memories flooded back those days as a hopeful paramedic, the training drills, the urgency of saving lives. But now, he was just a janitor, a man destined to scrub floors and clean bathrooms. Help! Someone screamed, pulling him from the haze. Without thinking, he dropped the mop, instincts ignited, muscles tightening. He rushed to the fallen boy, a flicker of fear igniting just as quickly. Could he really do this? He could hear the snickers from some who would say, "You're just a janitor." But today, he couldn't afford to hesitate. Before he could question himself, he was on his knees, steadying the boy's body. A quick check, no pulse. Time stretched. Each second felt like an eternity as he initiated compressions, fingers digging, desperate to avoid failure. The chaos around him faded into an echo as he concentrated, his past igniting a fire he thought flickered out. 12 seconds passed, maybe more. Uncertainty clawed at him, the weight of judgment loomed heavier than ever. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Finally, a weak pulse under his fingers, a flicker of life. Relief crashed over him, but a storm of turmoil brewed just beneath the surface. The crowd's murmurs blended into a cacophony, the admiration of some mingled with the derision of others. How could they celebrate him while simultaneously mooring him to his place lower on the societal ladder? The duality of glory and disdain tangled around him like vines constricting his spirit. Days passed since the incident, yet restless nights filled with questioning refused to leave him. In the echoes of classroom halls, whispers took form, the story of a janitor turned hero. But was this merely a band-aid over the wounds of his crude label? As he scrubbed the floors, Mike could feel the hypocrisy in every sweeping motion. Could anyone see that behind the uniform, a man obsessed with providing for his daughter craved respect? Lily sensed the churning of emotions as she observed him. "Dad, why don't you tell them how you saved that boy?" she asked one night, her voice thick with admiration. But in her eyes, he detected the pulse of frustration not just directed at others, but at the limitations tied to her father's role. The ceiling fan whirred, air thickening with unspoken words. What would come of his actions? Did a single act of bravery outweigh the weight of a lifetime of judgment? Time ticked on, and the crucible of his identity tightened around him, questions swirling like restless ghosts. Mike stood there, teetering on the precipice of recognition and rejection, the shadows of doubt heavy in the air. How long could he hold on to the flickering hope of change? Would this spark ignite a fire of possibility, or simply extinguish him further? Into obscurity. The next morning, as the fluorescent lights flickered to life in the empty hallways, Mike felt a familiar weight settle on his shoulders. The buzz of conversation had thickened since the incident, every passing glance came laced with expectations he wasn't quite ready to confront. Curiosity followed him like a shadow, and he found himself yearning for the anonymity he once cherished. But today was also a day of choice. Standing in front of the mirror in the boys' restroom, he adjusted his janitor's cap, testing his reflection. The man looking back wasn't just a janitor, he was a father, a protector, and deep within the recesses of his mind, a savior waiting for validation. Every notch of his brow told a story, resilience resting on the edge of acknowledgement, hanging between doubt and defiance. As he moved through the day's chores, the murmurings around him transformed into a mantra. Students whispered, teachers nodded with pride, yet all he could hear were the echoes of just a janitor ringing in the background. Thoughts swirled chaotically. Was he truly worthy of the attention, or merely the product of a capricious moment? Focusing on his tasks, he found an unexpected rhythm. The act itself became a form of reflection. Each swipe of the mop through the science lab felt like a conscious decision to reshape how he viewed himself. Maybe he was something more, something valuable. Perhaps saving that boy had been a turning point, his own internal awakening masked by self-doubt. Determined, he made his way to the cafeteria, sensing an opportunity amidst the clatter of lunch trays. A small group of students had formed a circle, captivated by a classmate urging them to share their talents. Inspiration surged through him. What if he stepped forward? What if he unraveled another layer of his identity and offered lessons not just about cleaning, but about life, responsibility, and courage? His heart raced at the thought of exposing his vulnerabilities, but perhaps that was the essence of his development. Vulnerability could be strength. Breathlessly, he approached the group. "Hey," he called out, the fire within battling his hesitation. A few heads turned, eyebrows raised in both confusion and curiosity. "I know I'm just the janitor, but I used to be a paramedic. I can teach you about first aid." A silence descended, but it was pregnant with potential. Some smiled, while others exchanged skeptical glances. But Mike persisted, feeling emboldened by the resonance of his words. "You never know when the skills might come in handy," he said, an edge of urgency slipping into his tone. One brave student stepped forward, intrigued by the idea. As Mike shared basic techniques to help someone in distress, he felt the heavy cloak of judgment begin to lift ever so slightly. Confidence replaced doubt, respect seemed to trickle back in, even if just in small increments. After the impromptu lesson, students gathered around him, a mix of questions and laughter lighting the air. It wasn't just about the act of teaching, it was a bridge toward acceptance, acknowledgement, and perhaps a simmering recognition of dignity reclaiming its space. Returning home, he found Lily waiting by the door, her wide eyes mirroring a mixture of pride and anticipation. "Dad, you really taught them?" she exclaimed. "Yeah, I did," he replied, his voice brimming with newfound strength. "And I think I might just keep going." That night, as he watched her get ready for bed, Mike pondered the next steps in this unexpected journey. How far could he push the boundaries of his identity? What if this was the beginning of a new chapter, a potential to inspire not merely in emergencies, but in everyday life? But beneath the thrill of possibility lurked the question, what would happen when he finally faced those naysayers who lingered just beyond the shadows? The following morning, the air in the hallways bristled with changes. There was a tension now, a newfound anticipation that prickled Mike's skin as he stepped through the school doors. The echo of laughter and chatter felt different, it was layered with something deeper, a curiosity that weighed heavily on his resolve. He had opened a door, and now he felt immense pressure to sustain the momentum. As he strapped on his janitor's belt, adorned with tools and cleaners, Mike pondered the symbolic nature of the items he carried. They represented not just maintenance but transformation, cleaning up messes and forging connections. Today, he wasn't merely on his regular rounds, he was a catalyst for something more profound, something that had shifted in him since sharing his knowledge of first aid. His mind raced with strategies to engage students further, to strike a balance between vulnerability and authority. It was time to reinforce the bond he had begun to create. Blossoming within him was a desire to tackle not only the shadows of judgment but also the fortifications of his self-image. He longed to transcend the role of just a janitor, aiming instead to become a beacon of knowledge and camaraderie. During a rare lull in the morning's chaos, one of the teachers, Mr. Sanders, approached him. The usually stern educator leaned in with an air of camaraderie. "I heard about your little first aid lesson yesterday," he said, a note of encouragement in his voice. It resonated with the students in a way I haven't witnessed before. We could use someone like you, Mike. Those words washed over Mike like a wave, nearly overwhelming him. They were validations he had never sought, yet here they were, tangible and inviting. Did he dare to embrace this recognition? He nodded, careful not to let hope swell too overtly. It felt fragile, like glass. With the conversation fresh in his mind, he returned to his tasks, but the mop felt different in his hands. Each stroke across the linoleum floors became a rhythmic mantra of purpose, an exercise in manifestation. What if he structured workshops on practical skills: first aid, problem-solving, responsibility? The thought bubbled and churned inside him until it surfaced. He was not merely cleaning, he was shaping minds, fostering resilience. He imagined posters around the school: "Join Mike for Emergency Preparedness Wednesdays." That evening, Lily sat across from him at the dinner table while he scribbled notes on a napkin, drafting a plan. "What's that, Dad?" she asked, her green eyes sparkling with curiosity. "I was thinking about starting a workshop at school," he replied, excitement dancing in his voice. "Teaching kids about first aid, maybe even some life skills. You know, things that matter." Lily leaned closer, absorbing his words. "That sounds amazing, Dad. But what if they don't show up?" Her innocent question cut deep, echoing the very doubts that had plagued him for years. What if he failed? The naysayers those doubts embodied would only grow in strength if he faltered. He smiled at her, shaking his head. "The what-ifs will always be there, sweetie. But if I don't try, I think I'll regret it." As night fell, Mike wrestled with uncertainty. This was stepping into uncharted territory, an arena where he had to confront his own fears alongside the students. He'd be staking a claim to his worthiness, testing the ground beneath him. Could he stand up to anyone who dared belittle his efforts? Before sleeping, he reviewed his plan, drafting a syllabus with care. Yet beneath the surface thrill of anticipation lay the gnawing apprehension of potential ridicule. With each tick of the clock, the question loomed larger: could he withstand the scrutiny, the skepticism from those who seemed eager to undermine him? The next day, he would take the plunge. His future awaited, shrouded in uncertainty and potential. The moment to face his doubts approached, and in that anticipation, the stakes had never felt higher. The morning sun slanted through the school windows, casting sharp angles of light across the floor. Mike adjusted his janitor's belt, the tools steadying his nerves even as his heart raced with the weight of the moment. Today was the day he would pitch his workshop idea, an opportunity that allowed him to redefine not just how others viewed him but how he viewed himself. The buzz in the hallway intensified as students filtered in, chatter punctuated by laughter. Each familiar face now bore a hint of expectation. As he began his rounds, Mike caught snippets of conversations revolving around Mike's safety workshop. A few dared to approach him, asking questions, showing a curiosity he had not anticipated. Each interaction chipped away at his insecurities, revealing the possibility for mutual growth. By the time he arrived at the teacher's lounge, the assembly of educators was engaged in animated discussion. Mr. Sanders spotted him and waved him over. "Hey Mike, want to share your idea with the team?" The invitation was like standing on a diving board, peering into unknown depths. Would he leap or hold back? With a deep breath, Mike stepped forward, squeezing between tables until he found himself at the front. The room quieted, attention shifting to him. He felt the weight of their gazes, charged with curiosity and doubt. Thanks for letting me speak," he began, his voice steady but tinged with nerves. "I'd like to propose a workshop focused on first aid and basic life skills for the students." The words tumbled out, each one a small victory in the ongoing battle against self-doubt. "I believe these are tools that can empower them." He noticed heads nodding, but still, feelings of inadequacy loomed over him like thunder clouds. "I know I'm not a teacher, but I think I can share something valuable. We have a responsibility to equip these kids with knowledge that goes beyond the classroom." A moment of silence followed, the weight of his statement hanging in the air. Then, slowly, Mr. Sanders spoke. "That's a solid idea, Mike. We can support you in this. Staff can assist with logistics. As they discussed the details, Mike felt a pulse of enthusiasm ignite in the room. The idea was being embraced, and for the first time, the glance of each teacher didn't pierce through his self-image with judgment but reinforced it with encouragement. He could see their belief in his ability emerging like the sun filtering through clouds. With plans forming and teachers rallying behind him, Mike made his way back to his duties, overwhelmed yet elated. The mop in his hand felt lighter now, reflecting the lightness in his spirit. He finalized his syllabus mentally as he cleaned. Each swipe of the mop was infused with a sense of purpose. However, doubt snaked its way into the corners of his mind. What if this workshop did not lead to anything impactful? What if he was met with indifference? Just as quickly as excitement rose, anxiety countered. But he reminded himself that vulnerability was a part of growth. Later that afternoon, he spotted a group of students lingering in the hallway. They appeared to be debating something animatedly. Gathering his courage, he approached them. "Hey, anyone interested in learning real-life skills?" To his surprise, their eyes brightened, and their curiosity pulled them closer. "Like what, Mr. Mike?" a girl asked. As he explained his ideas, the strategies he envisioned, the potential lessons on first aid, he could see their engagement bloom, yet amidst the enthusiasm, a familiar shadow lurked in his mind. "But what if you aren't capable enough?" it whispered, questioning his every step toward this newfound purpose. "Join us," the girl urged, igniting hope within him. "I want to learn." He swallowed hard, realizing that in that instant, a breakthrough was possible. These students were eager for guidance, and for all the judgment he feared, there also existed a space for acceptance. Could he find not just acceptance but respect? Feeling a surge of determination, Mike straightened. "All right, then, let us make this happen. Together." As he walked back through the school, adrenaline coursed through him. He had crossed an important threshold, and yet, looming beyond the horizon was a greater challenge: the conversation that would unravel with the school administration, paving the way for an unknown journey ahead. Little did he know, the pressures of that meeting would bring a revelation he never anticipated, one that would compel him to confront the deepest corners of his past and the unexpected events that lay before him. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead as Mike paced outside the administration office. Anxiety twisted in his gut. This meeting felt weighty, like the staircase he climbed, with leading thoughts of self-doubt clinging to him. With a steadying breath, he knocked firmly on the door. It opened, revealing a small, well-organized space filled with stacks of papers and diplomas on the walls. Principal Evans looked up, her demeanor brisk yet welcoming. "Mike, please come in. We've been looking forward to your proposal." The sincerity in her voice both soothed and agitated him. He nodded, stepping inside as the door closed quietly behind him. The space felt both claustrophobic and liberating, a paradox that mirrored his own tumultuous emotions. He positioned his hands firmly on the table, palms down, a grounding action that diverted his jittery energy. A small group of administrators seated themselves attentively, eyes fixating on him. "So, share your thoughts on the workshop," Principal Evans prompted, a hint of encouragement flashing in her expression. With a deep breath, Mike launched into his presentation, detailing the lessons he envisioned and their importance. "I believe learning these skills could empower students, cultivate their confidence, and prepare them for real-life situations." As he spoke, he caught glimmers of interest among the officials. Yet, a nagging thought drowned out the applause he imagined. For every nod, an inward critique whispered harshly, "Who do you think you are?" In the back of the room, he saw Mr. Sanders offering a supportive smile, bolstering his resolve. "Great initiative, Mike. But what about your background? With your experience?" one of the board members began, hesitating as if choosing his words carefully. "I know my role here as a janitor may seem unconventional," Mike interjected, his voice gaining strength. "But I've been a first responder in emergencies before. I have the perspective of someone who understands the value of these skills not just in theory but in practice." A tense silence ensued, and the room felt as if it held its breath. Uncertainties vacillated around him. What if they dismissed him, mocked his ambition? But he kept his resolve, recalling the eager faces of students who sought guidance. "Mike," the principal began gently, "we appreciate your passion, but we must consider the logistic and financial implications. You do understand?" He felt the pressure rise. They didn't understand. This wasn't merely about finances or logistics, it was about instilling essential skills that could save lives. "I'm willing to volunteer my time, resources, and knowledge. It doesn't have to cost much, I just want to make a difference." What if, for just a moment, this workshop could be the starting point for a student's journey? His words hung in the air, daring to challenge their static assumptions. The administrators exchanged glances, weighing his earnest plea against the reservations they held. The conversation shifted, with more questions directed his way. Each inquiry allowed Mike to delve deeper into his motivations, compelling him to confront the doubts that had plagued him. What if a student encounters a situation they never prepared for? He asked, urgency threading through his words. "I want to give them the tools not just for survival but for their growth." The intensity of the discussion began to convert to interest, even enthusiasm. Observing their exchange ignited new confidence within him, a flicker of belief that they might actually see him differently. He was more than a janitor, he was an advocate for youth empowerment. As the meeting drew to a close, Principal Evans leaned forward. "You make valid points, Mike. We'll take your proposal under consideration." The stroke of cautious optimism hung in the air, relief washed over him, but even as he walked out into the hallway, a sense of unrest festered. What did consideration mean? Would it lead to action? Shortly after, he overheard a pair of students discussing something by the lockers. They glanced over at him, their expressions mixing curiosity and admiration. "Mr. Mike, are you really going to teach us?" one asked, voice edged with excitement. The spark of their enthusiasm rekindled the growing fire within him, but that doubt surfaced again. Had he really done enough? He straightened, allowing a determined smile to light his face. "Yes, if they let me. We're going to learn together." As he walked away, he found himself grappling with not just the expectations others had of him but the expectations he now held for himself. The workshop was merely the beginning, a threshold into a different kind of future. What other strengths lay unexamined, waiting to be discovered? The pondering was cut short when his phone buzzed in his pocket. An unknown number. Cold dread dripped into his stomach as he answered. The voice on the other end pierced the air with urgency, as the reality of life and death cropped back into focus. Would it bring the change he desired or an unyielding reminder of his limitations? Mike's heart raced as he gripped his phone tighter, the urgency in the voice on the other end escalating his anxiety. "Mr. Turner, we need your help. There's been an accident at the park. A child has fallen from the climbing structure. He's unconscious, they can't wake him. We need someone with your skills, and they're sending an ambulance," but the words etched into his mind, pulling him back to moments etched in the past. His time as a first responder flooded back, the training, the adrenaline, the feeling of being pivotal in someone else's life. Yet, today, he was just a janitor. Would they trust him? "Where are you?" Mike interrupted, summoning determination amidst incessant doubt. "I'm at South Park. You can't get here soon enough, but if you can talk us through stabilizing him, maybe we can keep him safe." "On my way." He hung up and pocketed his phone, an instinct kicking in, unearthing a core of confidence he thought had been buried with the weight of his current role. As he rushed to the park, Mike wrestled with his identity along the way. Why was he doubting himself? He had trained for emergencies, had saved lives before. This wasn't a burden but a calling. The feeling that had haunted him before, the fear of being unqualified, eased slightly, replaced by a growing urgency. Perhaps this incident, this very moment, was exactly what he needed to solidify his role as a mentor, an advocate. Arriving at the park, chaos unfolded before him. A crowd had gathered, their faces a mix of concern and helplessness. His eyes locked onto a small figure sprawled on the grass. A child lay motionless, pale against the vibrant green. "Mr. Turner. We're over here." Came the frantic voice, and Mike sprinted to the family's side, where one of the park attendants was attempting CPR. Stop. Let us assess first. Mike's voice came out steadier than he felt. Memories of the past ebbed and flowed like tides of experience, pushing him to take action. Together, they checked the child's vitals. He felt the weight of responsibility settling upon his shoulders. We need to position him properly, clear his airway. His hands moved instinctively, pushing aside the fear threatening to drown him as he communicated commands. Is he breathing? The attendant's eyes mirrored the desperation of the crowd. No, but we can't give up, he needs chest compressions. Mike dropped to the ground beside the child and demonstrated, his hands moving with purpose. With every thrust against the boy's small chest, he felt his own doubts compressing, the realization striking that he was defining himself anew in this pivotal moment. Count with me, he directed, and the attendant joined in. 1, 2, 3. Each number resonated, not only in the rhythm of the procedure but the awakening of his own purpose. As he continued, he felt the heat of eagerness from the onlookers. They were beginning to believe in him, too. Every breath he took felt heavier with hope. Then, when the child jerked as life surged back, a spark of vitality ignited their spirits. Yes. Come on, buddy. Mike shouted, pushing through his own exhaustion. As sirens echoed in the distance, clarity crystallized in Mike's mind. This moment had transformed him. No longer just a janitor, but a lifeline for those who needed it most. A rush of gratitude filled his lungs as he realized the significance of this experience. The workshop, despite its uncertainties, had already begun to shape lives, even if only one for a fleeting moment. He had ignited something worth nurturing, and yet, as the adrenaline waned, another thought nagged at him: could he replicate this crucial impact daily? The workshop could be a starting point, but was it merely a shallow initiative, or a deep-seated path to becoming a true agent of change? As Mike stepped back, away from the crowd and into the reality of his own life, the weight of his dual identity pressed heavy. He realized that becoming the mentor he aspired to be would require more than just teaching. He would need to confront the limits he had placed upon himself. The journey ahead loomed before him, uncertain, yet electrifying. The phone buzzed again, an incoming message from Principal Evans, and a sudden thrill shot through him. What if this next step would either open doors or crush him under the weight of embarrassment? He seized the phone, a mix of trepidation and excitement weaving through him, as he read the words, "Can we talk about the workshop idea? I think we may have an opportunity. Would this be the moment that changed everything?" Mike stared at the screen, the message from Principal Evans both exhilarating and intimidating. An opportunity. The phrase buzzed in his mind like the lingering adrenaline from the life-saving moments at the park. But as the thrill faded, a shadow of self-doubt crept in. Could this workshop actually lead to something meaningful, or was it just wishful thinking? Taking a deep breath, he willed himself to concentrate. He recalled the child he had saved. It wasn't just a number or statistic, it was a face and a family. This was the moment he had trained for, but now he had to transform that experience into something tangible, a program that reached beyond crisis moments, giving others the skills to act and the confidence to do so. Yet, what did he know about running a workshop? His thoughts churned. Should he meet Evans and share his vision, risking exposure if it failed? The fear of ridicule knotted in his stomach. What if he faltered in front of the very people he wanted to inspire? The fear of being dismissed as just a janitor threatened to overwhelm him once again, but it was quickly quashed by the memory of the child's revival. He had a purpose. Mike pulled out a piece of paper and began jotting down ideas. Each stroke of the pen felt like a step toward claiming a new identity, one that could bridge the gap between his past and present. He envisioned a basic first aid and emergency response workshop. Nothing fancy but practical, grounded in the real-life experiences he had faced. He wanted participants to feel the same urgency and importance that washed over him today. As he wrote, clarity began to take form. Suddenly, he was not just a janitor playing a role, he was a conduit for crucial skills, an advocate for empowerment. Would this become a path that led to opportunities for him, and more importantly, for those he would teach? the flurry of thoughts led to a revelation: if he wanted to invigorate others, he had to break down barriers, especially his own. Before he could guide anyone, he had to confront the trepidation that haunted him. He wasn't simply asking participants to rise to the occasion, he himself needed to rise as well. Later that day, Mike prepared to meet Evans. Standing in front of the mirror, he practiced his pitch aloud, shaking off the doubts that crept in. I believe every person deserves the skills to respond in emergencies. We can empower them. A knock on the door jolted him out of his thoughts. Mike, are you ready? Just a minute. He called back, trying to sweep the nerves from his face. As he opened the door, the conversation with Evans felt like a leap into the unknown, a plunge into fears, yet also a spark of potential. Arriving at school, every step toward Evans' office felt like wading through thick mud, anxiety weighing heavy on his shoulders. Yet, the newfound conviction from the park fueled his resolve. The conversation started off typically, discussing logistics and schedules. But as he introduced his workshop ideas, Mike caught a glimpse of curiosity in Evans' eyes. It ignited a flicker of hope in his gut. Maybe he was on the right track. What do you think? He asked, a mixture of hope and fear in his voice more evident than he intended. It's ambitious, she replied, scrutinizing him as if assessing every hidden talent he had. But are you ready to take responsibility for it? The question hung in the air, weighing heavily on him. This was it. The moment that demanded he confront himself head-on. Could he back up his ambition with action? The thought of floundering surfaced again, but now he recognized it for what it was: fear of the unknown. I can do it, Mike affirmed, the words spilling from his lips before he second-guessed himself. I'll make sure it means something. All right, let's set a timeline, Evans said, her attitude shifting to a supportive mentor rather than an observer. As a plan began to take shape, Mike's heartbeat quickened. The fog of uncertainty didn't entirely clear, but the path ahead shimmered with possibility. He could harness his past not merely as a tool but as a foundation for transformation. But as their meeting progressed and plans were discussed, a nagging thought persisted at the back of his mind. Was he truly ready for the responsibility that would come with it? As the conversation wrapped up, Evans casually added, by the way, their essay budget for the program we can discuss next week. Mike's stomach twisted. A budget would mean accountability, expectations, and the potential for failure. The magnitude of commitment appeared more daunting than it had before. Would this drive him to grow, or would it expose him to risks he wasn't prepared to take? The blend of excitement and intimidation coursed through him as he left the office. The glory of his moment at the park felt distant, replaced by a new kind of pressure. He had come a long way, confronting walls he had built, but facing the tangible responsibilities of leading a workshop reset the stage for another transformation. Could he truly balance his ambition with the reality of impending accountability? Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows that danced around him. As he walked toward home, determination mingled with uncertainty began to brew in a heady mix. The journey ahead was fraught with trials and tribulations, yet brimming with immense possibilities. Mike's phone buzzed again, cutting through his thoughts. It was a message from the park attendant he assisted. We could use your help again when you're available. People want to learn what you did. A spark ignited within him. The chance to breathe life into this new role was already on the horizon. Yet, would he meet the challenges to come, or would the pressures crush him under its weight? The next chapter of his life was about to unfold, unveiling truths he had yet to perceive. As the evening wore on, Mike found himself in a vortex of conflicting emotions. The air in his small apartment felt thick, saturated with his fervent hopes and prickly anxieties. He paced the living room, hands deep in his pockets, wrestling with the implications of Evan's question. He was standing on the precipice of change, and yet the uncertainty loomed around him like fog, hiding the ground underneath. He sank into his worn-out couch, staring out at the dimly lit street through a cracked window. The lives beyond those glass panes seemed to flow fluidly. Families gathered for dinner, laughter mingling with the clattering of dishes. It reminded him of what he could offer of families not just surviving but thriving, armed with the knowledge to respond to crises, but what was he? Just a janitor. The internal taunts echoed in his mind, a chorus of self-doubt. He grappled with the prospect of sharing wisdom. He could illuminate a path for others, but was he capable enough to guide? Mike's gaze fell on the stack of emergency response guides he had ordered online, the very tools meant to frame his workshop. They represented his aspirations, but they also served as a glaring reminder of his inexperience. Flicking through their colorful pages, he zeroed in on one section highlighting the impact of first responders in emergencies. A familiar mix of inspiration and fear gripped him once more. Could he truly be that figure for others? Driven by impulse, Mike grabbed his phone and started typing a message to the park attendant. "I want to help out. I'll be available next week." His fingers hovered over the screen, considering whether hitting send would be a step forward or a plunge into further insecurity. But deep down, he understood that risking failure was the only way to unravel the strength he felt pushing against the boundaries of his own limitations. With each keystroke, the gravity of his decisions began to untangle. He was not just a janitor. In those chaotic moments in the park, he had acted decisively, powered by instinct and a deep-rooted resolve to save a life. He had the foundation. What he required now was the scaffolding of deeper understanding and technique to turn that instinct into a purposeful endeavor. Mike spent the next few days mapping out a rough draft for his workshop. Subject matter roamed from basic CPR to managing panic during emergencies. He had decided not to overcomplicate it with advanced medical jargon but rather empower participants with simple, actionable steps. Practicality became his mantra. The developing plan ignited a fire within him, each stroke of his pen fostering a sense of belonging. This wasn't merely a workshop, it was a bridge to creating a community of proactive individuals. Yet beneath the excitement, anxiety still coursed through him, a constant niggle. He raised the prospect of volunteering back at the park, a chance to witness firsthand the kind of fear that paralyzes when faced with real danger. Perhaps understanding the subtleties of response would boost his confidence. It was uncomfortable, but he recognized that discomfort fueled growth. When he arrived at the park on the following Saturday, the air thrummed with the vibrancy of the day. Children played in the distance, their laughter intertwining with shouts from local sports events. But behind that lively facade lay something more profound: the potential for emergencies to strike at any moment. As he engaged with the park attendants, he shared his desire to refine his approach by learning from real-life situations. Their acceptance felt like a green light. Drawn inward, Mike wrestled with thoughts of stepping beyond the boundaries of mere observation. He felt the pull of doubt, that familiar monster whispering in his ear, "What if you freeze under pressure again?" But echoing louder was the realization that in order to inspire others, he needed to conquer his own trepidations. Each task at the park became a microcosm of preparation for the workshop, making quick decisions on handling minor injuries, practicing vigilance when children played near water, and reminding himself that every moment was a teachable one. He watched and took notes, noting the unexpected behaviors of people during crises. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows through the trees, he witnessed a minor accident: a child slipping and scraping knees, parents rushing in a flurry of concern. It struck him then, witnessing fear ignites inspiration. As Mike stepped forward to assist, clarity pierced through his uncertainty. He wasn't merely keeping things tidy anymore, he was actively involved, preparing to harness the lesson buried within the chaos. Now, standing amidst potential chaos, Mike realized there was no turning back. His commitment had been ignited, but would this newfound resolve be enough to sustain him through the trials to come? As he headed home, exhilarated but exhausted, a message from Evans flashed on his phone. "We need to finalize details soon. You're truly stepping into your new role, aren't you?" Would Mike rise to the occasion, or would the weight of expectation prove to be too heavy? The shadows of uncertainty crept around him as he envisioned the workshop and the challenges that awaited him on the horizon. The time was drawing near, and it was a reality teetering on the edge of his own creation. The following days were a blur of frenetic energy and self-reflection for Mike. Prepping for the workshop became a ritual. He revisited his notes, his guides, his thoughts on every page. Each evening melted into the next as he transformed his apartment into a makeshift classroom, whiteboard leaning against the couch, colored markers sprawled across the floor, a chaotic testament to his mind grappling for clarity, yet beneath the surface of this bustling activity, uneasiness brewed. Rehearsing his talking points in front of the mirror felt hollow, like an actor practicing lines that never quite resonated. The reflection staring back at him was a stranger, Mike, the janitor, now dressing the part of an instructor, fumbling with unfamiliar concepts. He felt like a pretender, someone caught in a masquerade, praying no one would see the cracks in his confidence. The night before the workshop, sleeplessness crept in, wrapping around him like a suffocating blanket. The silence was a stark contrast to the chaos of the park, and within the confines of his mind, the whispering doubts returned, clawing at his resolve. What if you forget your points? What if they see you as just a janitor? He understood this workshop was more than just teaching, it was about sharing his story, intertwining vulnerability with wisdom. And therein lay the conundrum. He had to bridge the gap between his past experiences and the aspirations he'd carefully crafted over the past weeks. That meant confronting not only the fears of the unknown but also the shadows of his own identity. Morning found him pacing again, his thoughts bouncing wildly as he arrived at the park. The sun emerged stubbornly, illuminating the path he once walked as a mere custodian. Now the air was thick with the promise of possibilities. Participants began to trickle in, faces eager but apprehensive, mirroring his own trepidation. As they settled, Mike stood at the front, heart pounding, a nervous flutter in his stomach. The thrill of anticipation warred with that insidious self-doubt, a tempest brewing just beneath the surface. He took a deep breath, his palms clammy against the podium. "Thank you all for being here," he began, voice steady yet low. With each word, he summoned fragments of that hidden strength he had felt in the park. Memories flooded back, the urgency of the child's scraped knee, gathering breath for a quick response. He spoke from a place deep within, threading his narrative through the practical measures he hoped to impart. As he transitioned through topics, he felt the lines of pressure soften with each interaction. Questions from the audience prompted moments of connection that broke the shell of his anxiety. It struck him the very knowledge that he had once doubted now lit the room like a beacon. Halfway through the session, as they moved toward simulations of emergency scenarios, a flare of panic pierced his focus. One participant struggled to recall the CPR steps, a visible struggle coursing through her. An electric moment of comprehension twisted Mike's perspective anew. This was not merely about the techniques, it was about ensuring others felt equipped to act, just as he had in the park. Emboldened, Mike stepped in. "Remember how we practiced breathing? It's one key element, yet the most powerful." He modeled the motion as participants echoed his rhythm. Confidence surged in him, and with each demonstration, he became less the janitor and more a leader. In those moments, he caught glimpses of the metamorphosis within himself. Instincts about which he had once been unsure were now crystallizing into competencies he had never fully acknowledged. The energy in the room shifted, as did something deep within him, but amidst the triumphs, uncertainty magnetic pulled at him. Would this newfound clarity hold? Would he still feel like an imposter after the workshop ended? As the session concluded, applause echoed through the park, wrapping around him with unexpected warmth. Yet, among the applause simmered a flicker of fear. The workshop was just the beginning. Real-life application awaited, where mistakes weren't hypothetical, and the stakes weren't mere points on a chalkboard. Turning to the group, he felt the echo of a question weaved through: would you trust a janitor to save your life? And with that uncertainty came the promise of another challenge, looming just beyond the horizon, pushing him to confront the very heart of his quest for transformation. As he mingled with participants after the session, a message appeared on his phone, deepening the stakes: "I can't believe you actually went through with it. Your impact is just beginning, but remember, not everything will go as planned." Mike stared at the screen, pulse quickening. The next phase awaited, and he could no longer shy from the reality of what lay ahead, a test of what he truly had embraced. The weeks that followed the workshop were transformative for Mike. Each day, he returned to the school not just as a janitor, but as an instructor, his identity reshaping itself in real time. His newfound position carried the weight of responsibility he had long yearned for, the flicker of hope growing stronger with every session he led. Students responded to his enthusiasm that flickered in the air, threading through the lessons like an electric charge. Mr. Mike. They called, eager to share their stories of what they had learned. Stories of small victories, performing CPR on a family pet, helping a neighbor with a scraped knee, or even just feeling more confident walking alone at night. These interactions fueled his spirit, pushing him to develop deeper, more engaging material. The practical applications of his teachings became a common narrative, a language they all understood. One day, after a particularly energetic session about managing panic during emergencies, a group of students cornered him at the end of the hall. They had excitedly formed a first aid club, reflecting on how his lessons had empowered them. "We want you to be our advisor, Mr. Mike," one of them exclaimed, eyes wide with anticipation. That moment marked a seismic shift within him. No longer did he feel like the invisible figure in the background, he was a central part of students' lives, an essential node in their learning journey. Days later, an unexpected message landed on his phone from Principal Evans. "Mike, I'd like to talk to you about a potential initiative to celebrate the impact of your work in the school. Your first aid club might be a great start. Let's discuss possibilities." His heart raced. Could this be the recognition he had once doubted would ever come? Arriving at the principal's office, he found himself nervous yet filled with pride. Evans greeted him with a smile that hinted at excitement. "I've been hearing wonderful things about your workshops. The students are thriving." Sitting across from her, Mike spoke candidly about the club, a realization washing over him. It's not just teaching skills, it's about building confidence and community among the students. They're helping each other, and it's invigorating to see. He paused, reflecting on his journey thus far, the countless doubts, the moments of panic he had faced. Now, he found himself prepared to step into leadership. With every word from Principal Evans, the path began to stretch wider before him. "I'd like to propose a school-wide event where students can demonstrate what they've learned, maybe even an assembly highlighting emergency response skills. Think of it as a celebration of preparedness and awareness." This concept stirred the quiet hope within him into a roaring flame. A public acknowledgement of not just his impact but the impact of their collective efforts. They could eclipse the label of just a janitor. Over the next few weeks, preparations for the event became an all-consuming focus. Mike involved students, seeking their input on planning, empowering them to take ownership of their newly found skills. He continued to refine the curriculum, shifting his attention to a broader audience, while still honing in on the importance of individual identity and respect. His confidence surged as he witnessed the transitions taking place around him. The day of the assembly arrived like the approaching dawn, awakening something new and brave in him. As students showcased their skills performing first aid, demonstrating awareness techniques, the atmosphere thrummed with excitement. The applause reverberated against the walls, a testament to the collective growth they had achieved. Watching the students shine, their faces alight with pride, Mike felt an unfamiliar warmth blossom inside him. As it was his turn to speak, he took a deep breath, channeling all the energy swirling around him. "What we've done here is about more than just skills. It's about dignity and respect, for ourselves and for each other. We're not just individuals defined by our titles, we're a community, and each of us holds a unique power." The response was electric, students erupted in applause. In that moment, he realized he no longer identified merely as just a janitor. He had become a leader, a mentor, and in this role, he had also forged a deeper connection with himself. As the event wound down, several teachers approached him with praise, and a few even expressed interest in collaborating on future workshops. He felt palpable recognition in their words, a surge of belonging. Days turned into weeks, and Mike continually built on these newfound relationships and opportunities. A few months later, after the workshop and assembly propelled by student involvement, he was approached by a local community college. They wanted to feature him in a program to promote community resilience, celebrating those who inspire change despite their humble beginnings. The irony swept over him as he stood at the podium once again. Just a janitor had transformed into a beacon for those seeking recognition in their unique paths. In a moment reflective of profound personal growth, Mike delivered an acceptance speech enriched with his journey's heart. It's not about where you stand in the world, it's about where you choose to elevate others. That night, Mike walked home with a satisfied heart, embracing tension no longer as crippling doubt, but as a force that propelled him forward. Each step he took resonated with the knowledge that he had truly transfigured not only his own life but those around him too. And in this quietude, he couldn't help but smile. He had set the stage for a lifetime of influence that transcended the labels, aiming not just to protect lives, but to celebrate the pursuit of growth in the face of adversity. You need to subscribe now to never miss the stories of real transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to help spread these impactful stories. Comment below with your reactions and theories on Mike's inspiring journey, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Spread the power of positive change today.